All right, let's blast off. Let me do it. Let me do the dang thing. Let me fucking hit that blasty and then let's get started. Brandon's big boy presser, fallout, VP Trump, President Putin, and more. Brent Biden, dead enders on max cope mode. Dems in disarray. Ryan Grimm and Jeremy Scahill will be on later to discuss Gaza. We checking on Joe Scarber's React every day, baby. Are you kidding me? Every freaking day. Get in now. I did another interview this morning with Hasanabi, which is now doing a polit section as well. A lot of outlets have been reaching out recently. Oh, also I did my security clearance for the DNC. So, you know, I'm locked in for the DNC, I'm pretty sure. So get excited for that. You're becoming commodified. Yeah, dude. They letting your ass in the DNC, yes, but they're not letting my ass in the RNC, which is annoying. What do you need clearance for? Brother, the president's gonna be there. What do you guys think? Like, you literally have to go to the Secret Service website. Like, it's not even a joke. For the RNC as well, because the former president is gonna be there. But yeah, you have to get Secret Service background checked. For your rare come out of like a shiny Pokemon card. How did Chapo get into CPAC? Just sign up as Hank Pegger for the RNC. CPAC is different. RNC and DNC are obviously conventions, so it's not like as open to the public as these other places are. No, RNC a hard unsubscribe for me. Joking. You got to give him your internet history. Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but like my internet history is pretty fucking public, sometimes to a detriment. Okay, they didn't even need to do a background check. They saw your name was Hassan and denied you. Have you ever been to Chiang Mai, Thailand? Super Thai Warrior, please, if you have ever chance to come to Thailand for vacation, we have nice weather, beaches, and amazing cuisine you will like. Never seen you mention Thailand before on stream. I would love you to meet Thai friends. I would love Hassan's take on Thailand. I love Thailand. Thailand's fucking awesome. Very gay. You know, pro sex work. I'm on board. Thailand is sick. Will was originally setting up an actual like week of training in a Muay Thai camp where we were going to be streaming every day from the fucking Muay Thai camp. The problem is, I don't know how we're going to do it this year. It's going to be hard. Kaya 1 year ago, that's insane that this is what she looked like. Yeah, we swapped her out as a different dog. Damn, dude, you was chunky. Okay, chill, bro. Chill. I wasn't that chunky. Calm down. Do you like the Scottish? Hope you understand my accent in this message. Yes. Swapped out the broccoli cut too. I don't mind the broccoli cut. The broccoli cut's good. It makes my hairline look better. Not gonna lie, you somehow got hotter. It's literally it. Yeah, I got hotter because I lost like probably 20 pounds since then. 30 pounds almost since then. 2024 Ozempic arc. Yeah, Ozempic. I'm brolic. I'm too brolic for that shit. But thank you for thinking that I'm on Ozempic. That's nice. Anyway, real ones know Hassan's always been hot. No, there was definitely a time when I wasn't. Okay, there was definitely a time when you know, people were still thirsting, but I was not. I was sad. One day I'll reveal to you guys the before after photos when my after looks solid enough. The long hair arc was the worst, I think. It was just so bad. It was so bad, and it also was made worse by the fact that the lighting was bad too. In here, it was like yellow. There was this like yellowish hint to all of my like to all of the videos that I made from the long hair cult leader looking era, which was my worst era in my opinion. It was just bad. Not gonna lie, you look peak here. Not much. Don't know how much more you can do. Thank you. There's a lot more to go. What is your boy posting? Your Zin Tower is so low. Yeah, because I've been consuming. Democratic establishment stabbing Biden in the back like Julius Geezer. That's hilarious, dude. Anyway, We've already blasted off, but what is going on? Okay, she's drinking water. That's allowed. That's allowed. All your different forms are good. Don't let anyone sway you away from this fact. Dude, once Texas comes back into the first world, it'll be great. The numbers will go up again as well, by the way, in this community, because like every Texan chatter I suspect is currently just sitting in the dark. Good luck to all my Texans out there. Texas Tech, Willie P. We back already. Kaya, place. She doesn't like laying on this thing as much. She likes laying on the ground, and it's not good for her elbows. So I got to make her lay on the ground. Anyway, Themasius, thank you for the playlist. Long hair had your highest peaks. Not every day, but not every day is a good hair day, and you get too much on camera. Yeah. Yeah, I saw the new Johnny Harris. Donald Harris coming at it again, talking about Elon Musk. Can't wait to see. Per New York Times, Senator John Fetterman, one of the loudest voices of the Democratic Party supporting President Biden's decision saying the raise, described his colleagues in Congress who have called Biden the dropout of some randos during a Washington Post podcast on Friday. He called the group statistically small and said there was a concerted campaign to dislodge Biden. Yeah, he thinks that there's some randos because his brain doesn't work. Okay, he literally doesn't understand anything. So in his mind, he's like, they're just some randoms. I don't know. I'm scared when I see them walking down the hall. I think to myself, who are these people? And then I ask someone next to me, usually a staffer, to give me my apple juice. Bro, this is a terrible impression. Whatever, dude. I like Joe Biden. He's the president. They can't all be hits, Hassan. I don't think I've ever done a John Fetterman, and I don't really care to do it. So, dude, that was kind of ableist of you. Yeah, dude, I'm sorry. I'm not holding back on stroke victims that are in positions of great power, okay? Especially when they're like unimaginably invested in defending a genocide. Like, sorry. When your stroke is fucking causing you to be like extra pro apartheid, extra pro genocide, like I'm going to make fun of that. All right. Biden is fighting to keep his campaign alive during solo press conference. I told you guys that it wasn't going to be as bad as you think it was going to be. And the media was going to play the role of covering it as like, he had some moments, but he ultimately pushed through. Look at what a big boy he is. And that is the overwhelming consensus. Obviously, in the normie sphere, everyone's talking about Vice President Trump. Everyone's talking about President Putin and all that kind of stuff. But in the media sphere, in the sphere of those with actual proximity to power, the way that this press conference was reviewed was, he showed that this is his favorite subject, and he's good at talking about NATO. Look at him. He's so good at foreign policy. And I'm obviously going to dissect some of the foreign policy takes that he has, both from the perspective of like, what does this do for his reelection? Is this actually impressive? And overall, like, do I agree with any of the things that he said about NATO? Obviously, the last part about it is that of course, that I am not in support of any of America's, foreign policy positions. Pretty much across the board, they're pretty bad. But let's continue.
Working to save his re-election campaign. The president took questions last night at his first solo news conference in 8 months. He showed command of foreign policy over nearly an hour, but also stumbled at times. The big question now,
I should have just let George say it, because he just literally said it. He said exactly what I said. He showed command over foreign policy, but he had some stumbles.
Elected Democrats fall in line or ease him out of the race. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce starts us off. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. Well, the White House this morning.
Oh, shit. The Majority Report. What's up, everybody? Thank you for the raid. The Majority Report. Hope you had a good stream. Welcome.
is touting a strong performance from the president, but it is not clear if what we saw from him last night is going to be enough to turn the page. He did admit that there are other Democrats who could beat Donald Trump, but said it would be hard to start from scratch. And the president was adamant, unless his team can show him that he is headed for certain defeat, he's staying in this race. Overnight, despite a rising wave of opposition, President Biden making clear his mind is made up, convinced that he remains the best candidate to defeat Donald Trump.
I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again.
During an hour-long press conference, Biden taking questions from 9 reporters, hoping to demonstrate he has the mental fitness and stamina to stay in this race and lead for 4 more years.
I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started.
But out of the gate, Biden mixing up his own vice president and his rival.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
Trump seizing on that moment, writing, "Great job, Joe." But Biden firing back, yes.
He said, "Great job, Joe. Oh, you're doing great." It's so funny because, like, in a way, Trump can't be beaten on him too hard for 2 reasons. One, because he wants him to stay in the race because he knows that's a beatable candidate, okay? Unlike the rest of the Democratic lineup. And he also can't be beaten on him too hard because then he's going to look like he's just like doing elder abuse, and no one wants to see that. But of course, the fact that he's pulling his punches also causes other election watchers to see him as like a person that's moderating his positions. So in a way, it's a win-win-win for Donald Trump to just like kick back, let the media cycle Biden alive, and they just do the damn thing with the RNC. That's really gonna swap the attention, I think, unless Biden actually says some fuck shit in between now and the RNC. Like, the media will, of course, shift their focus over to like how insane the Republicans are, even though I suspect that this RNC cycle is going to have the Republicans trying desperately not to come across as like super radical. So we'll see.
I know the difference. One's a prosecutor and the other's a felon. Hours earlier, a similar mistake. Biden introducing Ukrainian President Zelensky as Russia's Vladimir Putin.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin.
President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin.
Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin.
Pressed on that error, the president laughing it off.
You mixed up Presidents Zelensky and
Good catch, sir. You really killed it.
Putin earlier today.
Dismissing the moment and calling the NATO summit a success. But even as he pushed back against concerns about his age, the 81-year-old admitting.
I just got to pace myself a little more. Pace myself. In the next debate, I'm not going to be traveling into 15 time zones a week before.
But the president was defiant, dismissing the growing chorus of Democrats calling for him to exit the race.
I served in the Senate a long time. The idea that senators and congressmen running for office worry about the ticket is not unusual.
Have you talked about the Eminem album yet? No, because I don't care. I'm not that kind of millennial, okay? Like, that's crazy. I guess he like took shots at Candace Owens and stuff, but like, I just don't know. You're just triggered. Yeah, I'm triggered. What did he say? Did he say mean things?
So there's a long way to go in this campaign. And so I'm just going to keep moving. And because, look, I got more work to do. We've got more work to finish.
And while he said he has full confidence in his Vice President Kamala Harris's ability to be president,
from the very beginning, I made no bones about that. She is qualified to be president. That's why I picked her.
he made clear he would only reconsider his decision to stay in the race if polls show he has no path to victory.
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win.
Uh-oh. They're giving him the solid edit again. Chat, this is a dangerous prospect, okay? They're giving him They're giving him the dignity edit, okay? For the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they were not doing that. They were just showing it raw. Now they're giving him the dignity edit where, you know, they're just like chopping it up to make it sound like making it sound like he is very coherent. Okay? Yeah, the coherence edit is here. This is we covered it yesterday, but the New York Times didn't give him the coherence edit and immediately fucking wrote, without paraphrasing, exactly what he had said verbatim. President Biden said polling in the presidential race is premature because the campaign really hasn't even started. I mean, hadn't started in earnest yet most of the time start till after September, after Labor Day. Where's the ellipses? The issue is not his current performance as much as what his performance will look like in a month, a year, in 3 years. Why doesn't he get this? Because he is a resentful, spiteful, old piece of shit. Okay? And I'm done hiding the truth. Not only is it actually dementia, but he is reflective of the broader boomer side movement. And by that, I don't mean like, you know, genocide on the boomers. I mean the genocide that the boomers want to do to the rest of the world. Okay? That's it. That's literally it, brother. That's it. He is a spiteful, resentful old man, and many of us know those people in our immediate lives, people that are just holding on due to modern medicine going too far, extending the lifeline of all of these fucking assholes who have captured 75% of the wealth. Okay? He's just a regular old crusty ass boomer who's just like, why won't you give me what's due? I deserve it. I deserve it. That's it. That's it. He's just like, I've been in politics for 50 years. I'm the president. Look at how great my agenda has been so far. I deserve it. It's my time. It's my time. No, motherfucker, it's midsummer time, okay? It's midsummer time. I'm done with this shit. I'm done with entitled ass boomers. I don't do a lot of generational politics because I think it's like ultimately it lends itself so perfectly to reactionary sentiment. But God, dude, God fucking damn. What is going on in the world, brother? Everyone over the age of 65 is just going crazy mode. They need to dial it back and go. They need to be put out the pasture, okay? Go live in a fucking retirement home, you know? Fuck each other silly, get all of the fucking gonorrhea on the planet. If you want to do all of that, that's fine. But stop fucking the bag up, okay? We need to do a forcible extraction of all of the wealth that is captured at the tippy top right now. And I don't mean by like, I don't know, the new geriatric focused economy that we are going into. I'm talking like just take their money. Take their fucking money. It's done. Take their power away. Take the keys to the car. No more boomer shit. Have you covered Project 2025 or the Jeff docs or just covered Biden being old? Please. And Trump is better. Have you covered Project 2025? Brother, you just started paying attention. You've been following since 2019. But like, I think you are telling on yourself. I'm a political commentator. I've been talking about Project 2025 not only for months, but also beyond that. Like I've described to you what Project 2025 is and how it has been in existence for quite some time. Oh, there's a chaotic donor situation happening as well. You uploaded a vid on your channel literally 2 hours ago on it. Yeah, that too. To be fair, you have a lot of returning people. I know. It's not necessarily that like I'm annoyed with the returning people who are just like now invested in politics again. I'm annoyed with the people that come in here with this attitude when they're like, seems like you're not covering any of the stuff that would actually reflect poorly on Donald Trump because of some secret reason. It's like, dude, that's you, man. That's your problem. Haven't watched since 2022 to be real law. Exactly. So why are you coming in here with this energy where you act like I'm fucking secretly in the pocket for Trump or some shit? You cover Project 2025 or the Jeff docs or just covered Biden being old. It's like, what do you mean? Biden or Buster? Nah. As of 5 minutes ago, the latest House Dem to call on Biden to drop out did it to his face. Lamau, respect. Sorry if this is a bit unrelated, but could you briefly explain why you dislike NATO? Not right now. Yeah. Levin, apparently, Mike Levin, told Biden directly to his face that he should drop out. Translation, Joe, my internal polls look very bad. Please drop out. Yeah, that is what that means. And that's not a bad thing. That's a smart thing. Yes, Biden is unironically harming the entire Democratic Party's down ballot races. It's really fucking bad. Amira Links, thank you for the 25 gifted subs. Oh no. Yo, John's popping. He said, thank you for holding me accountable. It is racist and sexist to believe Vice President Harris will be a stronger candidate than President Biden. I'm listening and I'm learning. Oh no, there's white on white crime happening right now. Okay. This is, ooh, goddamn. You don't like NATO? What are you, Trump? Oh, dude, so much worse. This is the funniest thing. Yeah. Excuse me. How dare you say Biden should step aside to let Kamala Harris be the president, or to let Kamala Harris be the presidential candidate? Okay. Excuse me. Why are you saying that? Biden is a black man. Biden is a gay black woman, actually. And you guys are doing a no growth. You guys are doing a microaggression against a gay black woman like President Joseph Robinette Biden. Okay. Also, notice the thing that the first tweeter has in common with them. Yeah. Lawyer, legal commentator, fighter for democracy, prosecutor Trump University at New York AG, commentator of MSNBC. All these folks calling Biden to quit, they're all white guys because Biden is black. They're all also collectively saying Kamala would be a better candidate than Biden. It's so funny because like absolutely zero people give a shit about like what the broader black community or the black voter base has to say, because polling has been conducted on the black voter base time and time again. And their opinions also reflect the opinions of these white people in positions of power. But zero people are talking about that. Okay? Like zero people are talking about that, which is so funny. It's just a conversation exclusively that white people are having. Is this quote tweet a joke? Yes, the quote tweet is a joke. John Lovett and the Pod Johns are experiencing what I have experienced for almost my entire career, being treated like pariahs, Bernie bros. They're being treated like Bernie bros. Yeah. Also, the other part of this equation is that I don't like lean in too much with the black vote is shifting narratives, but like the black vote has to a certain degree shifted in unprecedented levels over the course of the past decade. Not in a significant way, mind you, of course. But like the idea, the notion that like, oh, black people want Joe Biden, that's why you're racist, is so fucking stupid. Still kills me that John Lovett was the first ever Fearan guest. Oh yeah, that's right. New inside the meeting with Biden and the Hispanic caucus. Biden showed up an hour late to the Zoom. Frontliners MGP and Gabe Vasquez tried to ask questions but were denied. Levin told Biden to step aside. Ended right after Biden responded to Levin. Oh my God. Oh my God. Shit is not doing all right. Why is the BBC so bloodthirsty? Let me say this as clearly and as simply as I can. Inaudible. That's not real, by the way. That's not real. I don't think they actually posted that. They say, I'm still running. It's an edit. John Lovett was my MUFO, and like the tweet I made about Frank Sinatra being Ronan's dad, I didn't even know they were married at the time. Were they I didn't even know that they were married to this day. I thought they were just dating. And I know both of them. Oomphy is AAVE. Yeah, MHUD doesn't do AAVE out of respect. They were engaged, sorry. I know they're not together anymore. Yeah, John fucked up the bag big time. There was a guy watching your stream during the NATO conference. No, that's not real. That's so funny. You guys are so stupid. Oh, dude. I do have a lot of people in the media that watch me. Oh my God. Oh, okay. That's a 10-10 top of the hour debate. I'm hanging it up. The Gafficus, thank you for the 10 tier 1 gifted subs. Oh my fucking God. That's a top of the hour debate. And you cooked me. You destroyed me. You broke me. I am no longer the same person that I was before I clicked on this link. Comrade Hoppa, thank you for the 10 gifted subs, allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. That was a phenomenal bait. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. That was fucked up. Umpteenth time. Thank you for the 20 gifted subs. That is, other chatters should look to what this chatter did to me and, get better baits overall, because that shit was fucked up. Disastrous Biden call with the Hispanic caucus. Yeah, we just covered that. But apparently it gets worse. According to the source, Biden responded to Levin's comment. The host tried to end the meeting, but Biden said he had time for one more question. Despite the president trying to take another question, the host, Representative Linda T. Sanchez, ended the meeting anyway. I got a 998 out of 10. 602 raters. It's a good rating. Someone always fucks it up. 998. It deserved a 10, but I don't think we've ever actually gotten a 10 out of 10. Someone always fucks it up. There's always like a couple haters. So Guardian is coming out with the knives too. Hakeem Jeffries linked up and built with Brandon today as well. Hakeem Jeffries reportedly did not offer Biden his endorsement in the private meeting, which is pretty wild. For anyone on the Hill, this letter is explicit permission, perhaps even tacit support for coming out against the president. It seems neutral. It isn't. Yeah, he's so Jeffries is basically, as I've said before, Jeffries is Nancy Pelosi's guy, right? Nancy Pelosi basically groomed him for this position. So he's going to do exactly what Nancy Pelosi said. And that's precisely what he's doing. Dear colleague, Hakeem Jeffries' letter. Over the past several days, House Democrats have engaged in a thoughtful and extensive discussion about the future of our country during a time when freedom, democracy, and the economic well-being of everyday Americans are on the line. Our discourse has been candid, clear-eyed, and comprehensive. On behalf of the House Democratic Caucus, I requested and was graciously granted a private meeting with President Joe Biden. That meeting occurred yesterday evening. In my conversation with President Biden, I directly expressed the full breadth of insight, heartfelt perspectives, and conclusions about the path forward that the caucus has shared in our recent time together. As House Democrats have done throughout this Congress, we will continue to work in the best interest of everyday Americans. Thank you for your continued leadership in the service of the communities we are privileged to represent. Sincerely. So this right here, and Izzy is literally used to be a press person. I think might still be, but used to be a press person for Ilhan Omar. I think still is the press person for Ilhan Omar. Like this is what he does. He writes these letters. Okay. This is the type of shit. His job is literally to write that, okay, for a congressperson. So he's absolutely correct on this. For anyone on the Hill, this letter is explicit permission, perhaps even tacit support for coming out against the president. It seems natural. And it seems neutral. It isn't. And he's right. He is basically doing what Politico reporting came out about yesterday that Nancy Pelosi was doing. Nancy Pelosi apparently told House Democrats, urged them to, one, speak out against Biden, and two, if they have to call out Biden and call him to resign, then and it's going to help their elections, they should do so. That is the exact opposite of what you do as the House Speaker, okay? Nancy Pelosi's entire job throughout her entire career has been to make sure that that never happens. So the fact that she is allowing leaks to happen, okay, and in those conversations basically saying, no, you can come out against Biden, giving explicit permission, okay, to come out against Biden at a time when Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi are supposed to be Biden's greatest allies that are supposed to stop this flow of discontent, means that they want him out. And the reason why they want him out, is because they see the dire prospect of the down ballot races with Biden at the top of the ticket. And beyond that, they see the dire prospect of Biden's reelection. I think ultimately it would be, at this point, considering that Biden has kept it going for this long, I would say that at this point it would be silly to drop out before the RNC, especially when a lot of the RNC communications is going to be around the top of the ticket being Biden. Some of them have actually recalculated, and some of the Republicans have actually started retriangulating their messages against Kamala Harris. No, not DNC, RNC. RNC is happening next Monday. The RNC is starting in the next 3 days. Donald Trump is going to reveal who his vice president is in the next 3 days. I already ran the 3-minute ad break, chatter. Stop. I got destroyed, remember? Anyway, ultimately, yeah, it's going to be JD Vance, but that's different. Right now, even if they had convinced Biden to drop out, I doubt, even if they had convinced Biden to drop out yesterday or today or tomorrow, I doubt that they would come out before the RNC. They want the media to pay attention to, the madness cycle of the Republican Party. Okay? So it would be significantly better to, wait until after the RNC is done to come out with the Biden dropout revelation. That is if they have actually convinced the old man to listen to reason. Having said that, in that time frame, however, where is it? You got donors saying they're going to freeze roughly $90 million as long as Biden stays in the race. Biden won't quit unless Obama comes out against them running publicly. Yeah, that is really chaotic, though. I don't understand why waiting would be better. Wouldn't it cause people to focus on the bad shit stuff that the RNC is doing? No. Biden dropping out is a major week-long media cycle affair, maybe even a month-long media cycle affair. He drops out, then people shift their focus to who the new person is. No, that would dominate the news cycle in the same way that Biden's current bad brain is dominating the news cycle. This is very fortuitous for Donald Trump, because every moment that the media apparatus is not covering Donald Trump's insanity and ridiculous reactionary sentiment and how chaotic he is, how disordered the Republican Party is, and how they are responsible for abortion, is a good moment for the Republicans and their electoral prospects. So the Democrats, in terms of the upcoming election, really desperately need the media to shift their focus onto the RNC. And Biden's flubs currently are kind of making that hard. So right now, I would go so far as to say that the Monday meeting with Lester Holt is a bad move. I think that Biden's team is bad. Okay? I'll just say it like that. I think Biden's campaign is not good. We already knew that they were not good when they decided to fucking trot him out in front of 50 million people in an early ass debate that is now going to possibly cause him to leave the election altogether. Right? That's a big fucking deal. That's a massive flub. I am trying to find it, but there was a political scientist saying that Biden dropping out right after the RNC would be unlike anything we have a history of, because it sucks the air out of their message and let Dems remake it however they want if Dems were smart. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, I am in agreement with this. I think that tactically it would be an incredible move. It would be an incredible move to just wait out until after the RNC if the Democrats were united, if they were smart, which they are not, and they are cowardly, they are feckless, they are They are legitimately scared. Some for good reason, because obviously making bold proclamations about the top of the ticket, demanding that the top of the ticket drop out, is going to create an air of panic, you know. But having said that, it would be pretty fucking, it'd be a pretty solid move. Biden's soul is willing, but the flesh is spongy and bruised. True. Who is favored to win the 2024 election? 538 uses polling, economic, and demographic data to exploit likely election outcomes. Biden wins 50 times out of 100 in our simulations over the 2024 presidential election. Trump wins 49 times out of 100. There is less than 1 in 100 chance of no electoral college winner. What do you mean, why are they smoking? The data is perfectly accurate, I swear. Why are you guys doing the same thing that the Democrats are doing? When you see something that doesn't reflect what you immediately thought the race looks like. Guys, I have maintained the position that there is still a likelihood that Biden wins this election, okay? All things considered. The problem is not whether or not Biden can win the election. The problem is how fucking unlikely it is at a time when it should not be a toss-up at all. Do you not understand the problem here? The fact that there is still a likelihood that Biden can win the election is the reason why he's holding on for dear life, which is really fucked up. A lot of the new polling that's coming out shows him losing popularity in swing states, and that's pretty fucking significant, okay? Internal numbers are showing that they're underwater, and that's also pretty fucking significant. Having said that, however, this is not a 50-50 race, okay? This should not be a 50-50 race. This should be a 70-30 race. If there was currently a competent leader at the top of this ticket, it would be 70% favoring the Democratic Party, 30% favoring the Republican Party. But right now, it isn't there. And that's a massive problem, especially considering how much worse the media cycle is going to get for the top of the ticket and what the down ballot implications are of all of the other Democrats that are unfortunately running in the same election cycle as a 800-year-old man whose only prescient message is going to be, we beat Medicare. If that is the guy leading the party, everyone is only going to talk about that. And the more they talk about that, the less likely it is for Democrats to be able to captivate those who are just not interested in voting. Okay? RCP polling honestly seems more accurate, and this was in 2020. RCP polling is not more accurate. RCP is always at a fucking right-wing bias, in my opinion. No. RCP, in my opinion, leans a little bit to the right. And especially when we have such a close race, which shouldn't be close at all, but a close race nonetheless in terms of the polling, the RCP results are going to show right-wing bias in general. It is a polling aggregator, yes, but the weight that you place on different polls obviously matters quite a bit. All of these different polls have ratings, okay? All of these different polls have leanings. So poll aggregators weigh those biases when making these when they make these kinds of assessments. Okay? And how you differentiate between polls is what ultimately makes you a better aggregator. And RCP ultimately is like right-wing leaning. You're just calling it right because you don't agree with it? Wait, what? Dude, I think people are very confused when they say stuff like this. Because, like, do you think I'm confused because do you think I'm coping because I love Biden or something? Like, it's been 4 fucking years that I've been talking about how Biden is old and he's going to be a one-term president and that he should not have been the candidate for the Democratic Party in 2020. And that was a massive mistake for the Democratic Party's continuation. That was a massive mistake for policy in general. And in some ways, Joe Biden actually outperformed my expectations. like his commitment to leaving Afghanistan, which I will always defend. And also, some of his administration's federal agency moves have been pretty fucking solid. He's been more pro-labor. This is another thing that I will always stand on. He's been more pro-labor than I thought he would be. And he's also been kind of dog shit on other issues. Bad instincts overall as far as a centrist elder statesman in terms of hyping up the likes of Kyrsten Sinema, not whipping the votes adequately for his own policy agenda, allowing the IRA to get neutered, allowing Back Better to be fucking destroyed. There are plenty of things that he did that I disagree with ultimately. But all things considered, if we're grading on a curve in terms of how the Biden administration has looked like, pre-October 7. On October 6, he's looking pretty fucking solid. Lies for content? Yes, bro. Failfish, ride or die. Copium, holy copium. Lies for content. Yeah, I am a secret Biden loyalist, okay? A secret Biden loyalist who has been calling him, joking, sorry, I'm at work. Yeah. I'm a secret Biden loyalist who's been talking about the genocide that he is committing for the past 9 months, virtually every single day, literally almost every single day. It's because I have that level of commitment and trust in my secretary, okay, in my general secretary, in my chairman, okay? I want him to defeat the naysayers on New Game Plus difficulty. That's how much I love him. That's how much I know he will thrive in spite of the odds. Odds that I am actually playing into.
Me. No one's saying that. No poll says that.
The president
Insane.
telling his doubters he's not finished yet.
Am I getting the job done? Can you name me somebody who's gotten more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years? I created 2,000 jobs just last week. So if I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it. But there's no indication of that yet. None.
Now, despite what they feel was a strong night for the president, the campaign tells me they are braced for even more Democrats to come out and call for him to exit the race. But they insist they can turn this around if they just stay the course, if they keep getting the president out there in front of voters and the American people. And that he is going to be doing that again today. He'll be in the key state of Michigan with a big rally in Detroit, where the president is hoping he can turn the spotlight back on Trump and his agenda. George.
Okay, Mary, thanks.
We're joined now by CBS News chief political analyst John Dickerson and Democratic strategist and CBS News contributor Ashley Etienne. Good morning to both of you.
Morning.
John, there have been some extraordinary press conferences in presidential history. Usually they're about the substance of the press conference. In this case, it was about the performance of it. Could he handle the questions? How do you think he did?
Well, he didn't do as poorly as he has done, which is where we are in this conversation, which is where is the bar for the president going in, and did he clear it? I mean, I saw somebody refer to it as a make or break press conference. It didn't break, but making it, which for him is stopping the bleeding from the debate, shoring up support in his own party, and then taking it to Donald Trump, he's still got those two other tasks to take care of, which is shoring up his own party. I think basically what my reporting suggests, and I really want to know what Ashley has to say about this, is basically where you sit is where you stand in terms of how you responded to the press conference. If you are worried about him in the future and if he can carry out this campaign in 4 more years, you're still worried. If you are a supporter, you found things in it that you could support. And so that we're basically at the status quo. The problem for the president is status quo is not based on the polls and everything else. He's got to do more than that.
So, Ashley, where is Democratic leadership on this? And I want people at home to know you've had a comms director role with the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. You've had a comms director role with the Vice President, Kamala Harris, and you had a role in the Obama White House. You know these folks. What are they thinking today?
Absolutely. And I will say that the consensus is that the president actually had a good performance yesterday, and that he, to some degree, did stop the bleeding. But it's not clear that this will hold for the president. There were meetings until 1 a.m. last night with the caucus, various factions within the caucus. The president's problem really is that there's the caucus now is divided. Democratic caucus is.
He called Vice President Trump is not copium, dude. These are people. Okay, I'm gonna say something here. Joe Biden is significantly more demented than Joe Biden of 4 years ago, significantly more demented than Joe Biden of 10 years ago. Having said that, however, in his moments where the light is on, in terms of his foreign policy, what these people care about, okay, he is definitely smarter than Donald Trump, okay? He's more, in terms of the military-industrial complex, he's more reasonable, not as volatile as Donald Trump, okay? But that does not reflect the attitude of the broader electorate. As a matter of fact, sometimes, or oftentimes, it is directly at odds with what the voters care about, okay? This already happened in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State. This is a verbatim, one-for-one, direct, identical carbon copy of the way that the media looked at Hillary Clinton and said she is a brilliant person at statecraft. She is the Secretary of State. She knows what foreign policy looks like. Trump doesn't know anything. He doesn't know his ass from his elbow. And it didn't matter because the entire American project revolves around Americans not fucking paying attention to the death and destruction that America causes globally. And that is the reason why Americans don't give a fuck about their foreign policy, for good or for bad. Normally, in order to maintain American imperialism, yes, you have to sedate the masses. You have to make sure that they don't even ever comprehend the death and destruction that we are responsible for overseas. Because if you had to think about that all the time, look at Gaza. If you had to think about that all the fucking time, you'd go crazy, right? So therefore, when Biden is like genuinely a brilliant person when it comes to foreign fucking policy, in comparison to someone like Donald Trump, Americans don't give a shit. If anything, they think Donald Trump actually simplifies these otherwise very complicated things when he says, I defeated ISIS. I killed the scariest terrorist of all time. Okay? Do you get it? Do you understand? And that's precisely the reason why it didn't work in 2016 when the media narrative was like, Hillary Clinton knows what she's talking about. Isn't she fucking brilliant when it comes to foreign policy? Versus a guy who literally said, I like my war heroes that were not captured. Okay? Which was personally something that I found to be awesome. And that's why I illegally voted for Donald Trump in 2016 1 million times in the state of California. I mean, he shit on John McCain. That was dope. Anyway, let's continue.
It's divided into two major factions. One, there's a group that feels like, hey, listen, we can't be arguing for democracy all over the country. And
so the American public is stupid. I mean, they're just self-interested. That's number one. And number two, yes, they are. We are all stupid. We're stupid too, okay? We're all dumb in different ways. But like, don't think that you're personally significantly more intelligent than the average person because you care about foreign policy. There's plenty of fucking dumb fucks who care about foreign policy. Anyway, let's continue.
Not sort of honor those primary voters and their decision to support Donald Trump. To support Joe Biden. We can't undermine that. Then there's another faction that's saying, hey, listen, this stopping the bleeding doesn't solve the problem. He's 82 years old. If it's episodic, there'll likely be another episode, and we can't have it be more profound and come at a time where you run out of the clock. So I agree. I mean, I think that the challenge right now, I'm hearing that there's still going to be leadership that's going to meet with the president over the weekend, somewhat of a mini intervention. But also what they want to hear from the president is what's the plan going forward. They think, to Dickerson's point, that the strategy is off kilter. It's not working at this point, and then he needs to recalibrate the strategy and get back on the offense.
And that is the question. I mean, where does the Democratic Party stand when it comes to what is the game plan going forward if it is not President Joe Biden? Are they standing with Kamala Harris, the vice president?
Well, that's really the challenge I'm hearing. The major sort of source of the infighting over the past week within the caucus has been this question of the alternative. You know, there's of these two factions, one has argued you can't go in and ask the president to step down without a plan. There is no plan and there is no consensus. So really the president's next big challenge at this point is, can he unify this party? Can he reassure those members? And it's not going to...
Dude, this is so funny. I don't know, Hasanabi, do what you want for your platform, but I think it's best we drag Biden across the finish line. First of all, I'm not at the finish line with Biden regardless. You know what I mean? Whether they drag him across there or not. Okay? So that's number one. Make no mistake. Number two, mainstream Dems and Dems in general are way concerned with optics. That's why the GOAT Bernie never won. The polls are turning because of optics. It says C-SPAN stand says Biden's going to lose. That's why the mainstream Dems are saying the same shit. It's about polls, not optics. And Bernie didn't lose because of optics. He lost because the moderates wanted him out. Ultimately, dragging Biden across the finish line is not going to happen. There is no finish line there, or at least a finish line where the Democrats win. Okay? The likelihood that Biden wins this upcoming election is getting increasingly less feasible every single day. Every day that passes, where everyone is hyper focusing, zeroing in on his flubs over and over and over again, okay, is another day where his reelection chances are diminished. That's it. This does not mean that, like, if the election was tomorrow, Biden definitely loses, but the likelihood that he loses is pretty fucking high when he shouldn't be losing at all.
Be press conferences and interviews any longer. He's got to touch, he's got to feel them. I still stand by this argument that it was a mistake that the president didn't go to the caucus meeting this week, that the vice president is not over meeting with the Senate members, you know, because the question is whether or not there'll be more defections, and I'm hearing that there will be.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
John, is Joe Biden still the only one? He says he's the guy who's best positioned to beat Donald Trump. Do you feel that's true?
I mean, what are the 46,000 voters in the 6 or 7 battleground states going to determine at the time? I mean, part of the reason this is so complicated is all the analysis has to guess at where those voters who are going to make this campaign are going to be at the time they make their decision. And there's a whole lot of certainty, and very little of it is grounded in reality. Everybody's having to imagine the worst possible Joe Biden case and the worst possible replacement of Joe Biden's case. We're in the realm of imagination. Anybody who says they have dead certainty about this is crazy. That's the problem.
Yeah, can I just add this, though? The members within the caucus that are currently not supporting the president and are saying there needs to be an alternative are pointing to the president's own memo that the campaign released just yesterday, I believe it was. There's a line in there. If you dig really closely, they basically say that the races remain static if you look at the poll, but there has been some movement. And
Nobody pay attention to the psycho on the red side, though, is such a funny take. Like, dude, you cannot wish cast Brandon's cognitive decline away, okay? Like, what are you talking about? You can't do that. Like, I get it. I get it. You really, really want the media to be like, Trump is bad. Everybody kind of understands that already, with the exception of, like, the absolute psychos, okay? But, like, the notion that, like, oh, people aren't paying enough attention to Donald Trump is so stupid when he is quite literally shutting the fuck up for the first time in his life when he normally would be chirping. Do you notice why he's shutting the fuck up? Because obviously Biden's mental fortitude, or lack thereof, rather, is more important in the media cycle than what you know about Trump already, what Trump has said a million times over. You can want the American public to just close their eyes to that reality of Biden's obvious cognitive decline, but that's not going to happen. It doesn't work that way. But of course, a lot of people who have this kind of attitude, like Democratic Party loyalists who are behaving like Biden dead enders right now, always have the exact same fucking narrative run, which is, well, Hillary Clinton will win if you vote for her. Well, you know, you guys are just not voting for the Democratic Party hard enough. It's your fault. That's not how elections work. You need to start holding your politicians and their staffers accountable for running bad campaigns. It's very stupid to just be like, oh, dude, I don't understand why voters just won't get their shit together. I don't even do that for Bernie Sanders. I was very critical of Bernie Sanders' campaign in both of the primaries, okay? Because ultimately, it's up to him to win. Because you're a lib? Okay. Can't say I how I know, but polling shows that talking about Project 2025 doesn't persuade people. It's so funny that I always forget that there are so many Hasanabi heads in places that they would never openly admit they work at. And I guess it's obviously understandable because like this is a community that almost exclusively talks about politics. But I'm always shocked when I meet someone out in the wild and they're like working at the DHS or some shit, you know what I mean? Or working at like a think tank that I would never expect. And they'll be like, yeah, I'm a big fan of yours, but you know, they're trying to get the bag. They're everywhere. Anyway.
That movement is among what they characterize as historically Democratic constituencies. That's the base. So you've got folks like the CBC members and others that are saying, wait a second, if we're bleeding support among our base, Houston, we have a much larger problem than we thought.
And the president seemed to understand that when he said, if the numbers show that I can't win, then that will make me...
But he's got to believe that the numbers are ever going to show him, and he seems an imposter that he isn't. Right. One last point. This is exhausting for Democrats to have the president, every time he shows up, look like a bear on roller skates, where it could go any direction. That's right. And that's the loop he's in.
Yeah, but the Republican convention next week creates opportunity for the party.
It was really...
Maddow, Hayes, Reed, and Wallace react instantly to Biden's high-stakes press conference.
Very interesting, and I think...
But before we get to that, actually, let's talk about the Brandon campaign. We talked about the disastrous Hispanic caucus meeting, but apparently the Brandon campaign is now attacking another group of allies.
That is the most important election of our time, the democracy at stake. And we can have a good faith disagreement without doing this. And then, just as a political operative, it's just the incompetence of spending your time fighting Pod Save America, David Axelrod, George Clooney, and the most popular figure in the Democratic Party at a time when you are struggling with black voters is fucking insane.
And again, and I don't know who's doing it in the White House, and like I believe firmly that it's not the people that we know and are friends with, not just because they wouldn't do that to us, but because I think they're smarter than this, because this is just like really stupid shit. And the reason we're bringing it up in the New York Times is we know, because reporters are reaching out to us, that the Biden White House is just pushing around stuff on us. I had multiple calls from reporters today asking, saying that 2 White House sources told them that I wrote George Clooney's op-ed. That's the rumor. Dude, this is craziness, okay? This is craziness. When your dog turns to snakes, meth. Why? Biden doing a Nixon speed run? That Supreme Court ruling might come in handy. It is madness, dude. Biden's team communicated to, I believe it was either Politico or New York Times, that if the donors are pulling out, they'll do it without them. Sorry to spam. I just really wanted to see you, but I worked at Lockheed for 5 years, but you inspired me to finally quit my job 2 months ago, and now I have a part-time job organizing at the AFT union. I'm really broke, but much happier because you inspired me. Hell yeah, run the ad break. Critical support for the Pod Johns, yes. That a bunch of outlets were ready to go with until they finally reach out for me. They think that I was writing George Clooney's op-ed.
I mean, it was a very well-written op-ed, so it was kind of a compliment.
I know. I probably should have just taken credit for it. Yeah. But
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer will not attend Biden's Michigan appearance on Friday. Senator Gary Peters, a steadfast Biden supporter, and Representative Eliza Slotkin, who is vying for Michigan's open Senate seat, will also be absent. United Auto Workers President Sean Fain is traveling for a conference and won't attend either. So who's going to fucking attend? This man is going to lose Michigan, bro. I swear to fucking God. I mean, he's so cooked. He's so cooked. You immediately need to be like, we're swapping him out. Kamala Harris has already leaked to the press and also publicly stated that she is outflanking Biden on Israel's genocide in Gaza. It's just pack watch time. Prepare for the true BDS incoming. Biden dick suck. Oh.
Unpredictable hour in terms of how much.
What do you say to the argument that it's the administration, not the president, that defines executive policy, and as such, all this attention on Biden is not functionally relevant in terms of governing? Yeah, that's wonderful, except that's not how elections work. Okay? I don't disagree with that, but that's not how elections work. The average voter does not vote on that. The average voter literally votes for the dumbest shit. Like, I can have a beer with this guy. Okay? So liberals are just fucking delusional. He's so toxic to any voter. Just let him go before he alienates every single normie. I don't understand how Democrats are so fucking stupid. It's not that Democrats are stupid. It's that Biden is. I mean, Democrats are stupid and Democrats are cowardly. But this is one of those few instances where like there is a lot of stink coming from the Democrats. Enough stink that like they're communicating to the best of their ability without like rocking the boat too hard because they don't want to fuck up their bag. Democrats, and I've repeated this so many times at this point over the course of the past 2 weeks, Democrats can't come out and swing for the top of the ticket so aggressively that it shows too much chaos internally. Okay? So they're doing their very best to try to get Biden to understand, like, hey, man, it'd be nice if you just stepped aside. Anyway, let's continue.
News the president was going to break. I mean, we're all watching for the president's performance here, but he did also break some news just on the issue of domestic politics, talking about saying the delegates to the Democratic Convention are free to vote their conscience, describing that, answering that in such a way as if that's obvious. That's not necessarily a thing that is obvious. Also, the president laying down at the very end of his remarks there a sort of predicate for what it would take for him to leave the race. He said he would leave the race if his advisors came to him and showed him the data that said there was, quote, no way you can win, meaning no way that President Biden, could win. He then also said emphatically that no poll says that. But he's essentially establishing that as the threshold that would need to be crossed if he was going to leave. So, and I won't go on at length. I will just say, though, you noted that there were some moments of, startlingly impressive command of the issues. This is just my opinion. He is not only strong on foreign policy, he is just fundamentally right on foreign policy in the way that he talks about it. And again, your mileage may vary. That is how I feel about the way he talks about our relationship with our allies and our relationship with NATO. You can hear his command of the issues, particularly in his asides, like mentioning as an offhand way that it was Turkey really that needed really to be talked into an expansion of NATO that included Finland and Sweden, talking about the numbers of Russian troop losses in Ukraine, talking about the fact that he turned in his notes after he spoke privately with President Xi, alluding to the fact that Trump had all those weird meetings with the Russians and Putin in which he had no note taker present. I mean, it's even in the little asides where it just shows you he is a master of the foreign policy field and has been for decades in his career in the Senate, the vice president, and the presidency. And yet he undercuts his own presentation of those facts simply in the way that he presents them, with his self-interrupting and elliptical style, the very soft-spoken monotone that he sometimes uses. There's a big mismatch between his stylistic presentation and his truly masterful command of the subject matter on the subject that was the main focus of this presser, which was foreign policy.
That's, I think, incredibly well said. I would also note on foreign policy, he also got a question about Israel, a very long answer that was interesting, and I think measured in ways that some of his previous statements on that conflict haven't quite been.
Dude, this is literally, come on. Of course Rachel Maddow is going to be sucking on that, dude. Are you kidding me? This is Rachel Maddow, who was losing her fucking mind when Donald Trump was like, yeah, I don't really care. Let North Korea and South Korea deal with one another personally, which was like one of the only instances where Donald Trump was in the right in terms of foreign policy. And she was losing her fucking mind. She was like, I can't believe that Donald Trump agreed to not do military training in the Korean peninsula. Like, he is a secret agent for Kim Jong-un, okay? Like, she is a massive dick rider. She is a massive dick rider of American imperialism.
And he also said, it's time for this war to end. I mean, that statement, which also struck me as news. It's time for this war to end, I believe, was the sentence that he uttered. Let me go to you, Joy, for your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways this was a classic Biden. Foreign policy is his bailiwick. He was, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. As he mentioned, this is his strong point. And I think the parts where the press conference went into foreign policy and became rather sort of a mundane press conference, this was not like strictly the White House press corps. So it gave President Biden an opportunity to be normal. A lot of this struck me as just very normal. And I think that is something that he needed. this was President Biden as the longtime policy wonk. He gave himself credit for getting 50 nations to
You'd be so canceled that Liv saw you call her a dick rider? What do you mean? Why? Oh, because she's a lesbian? Yeah, okay. That's obviously, we're not talking about actual penis here. All
agree
right?
to expand NATO.
Ain't nobody's riding Biden's fucking dick.
He was very, there was a lot of sort of self-praise of his own foreign policy, which I think is important. He touted his victories. He had a really...
Yeah, also, Biden being a fucking masterful foreign policy demon is such a funny... Like, we have not even addressed the contents of Biden's statements, okay? Biden is not a fucking foreign policy demon. He's just good at foreign policy from the perspective of those who want America to who want America to continue doing a shit ton of wars, okay? But ultimately, he's not very good at foreign policy either. Look at Israel. How is he a master at foreign policy when the Israeli situation has been so bad that it got Americans to literally genuinely change their entire perception of a group of brown people that they have been primed to fucking hate? In my lifetime, I would have never imagined that a population that is overwhelmingly Muslim, a population that is entirely Arab, being ethnically cleansed by our most important ally would actually be seen as a negative by the majority of the American population. That is insane. That's insane. That's unheard of. That's unimaginable. Netanyahu is basically making Biden bark and jump, making him do little tricks. And then we have to sit here and be like, well, he knows what the good countries are, the good countries, and he knows what the bad countries are by name, and he can call it out. Like, talk about grading on a fucking curve here. Holy shit. Let's be for fucking real. All right? He's not exactly good at foreign policy either. It's just that because our expectation is that he's going to flub over and over again and fail disastrously, that when he is able to string a sentence together and come across as coherent, everybody goes, well, look at this big boy. He did the damn thing.
Really passionate moment at the end where he talked about the fact we need to control guns, not girls. And he got really passionate about more children being killed by a bullet than any place on earth in the United States of America. So he showed some passion there. I think, the gaffes and mixing up names, I think for people who've been observing Joe Biden for a really long time, that's actually just normal Biden. Like, he does mix up names. Was known for gaffes. This is the joke that was always about Joe Biden, is that he's the gaff.
I'm actually also confused at like Joanne Reed saying this right now, because she's also been like probably one of the most vocal critics of Biden's Israel policy. Like, what happened? Did you just do you have amnesia? Did you forget all of that? Did you get new directives from the executives? Like MSDNC, once again.
Guy. So I don't know that that is necessarily going to harm him in some special way. It's the fact that he had the energy, the capacity, and the ability to be normal Joe Biden, if a little more hoarse, if a little bit more, obviously older, just an older version of the Biden that we've sort of gotten used to over the years. It was the abnormality of the Biden in the debate with Donald Trump that threw people off so much. But I will close just by saying the guy that we just saw for the last hour is definitely not someone who is considering leaving the race. He cited the polls showing that there's no data that he's seen that says that he can't win. He was very praiseworthy of Kamala Harris, of Vice President Harris, as he should be, and said some really warm and good things about her. But he also said, even though that he believes that she is clearly qualified to be president, and that's why he chose her, even if someone showed him data that showed that she did better than him, unless he sees data that he can't win, this doesn't sound like a man that's thinking about.
There's so much data that shows he can't win. Like, so much data, overwhelming amounts of data. Okay? He's just not looking at it. He ain't looking at it. They're not showing him the data, except they are, by the way. They are showing him that data because he knows that there is data out there. Because he has also said that that data is fake. You've literally said yourself, you still think he can win like yesterday. Chatter, do you think that's how this works? You have to look at the polls, you have to look at the trends, and you also have to literally fucking look at what you should be performing at in comparison to how you're performing. This is not a 50-50 race, man. It should not be a 50-50 race. Just because he still can win doesn't mean that like the actual data is not spelling genuine trouble for Biden. Yes, I did say there is a likelihood, there is a chance that Biden still could win in spite of everything. That does not mean that, one, he's the best possible candidate, and that certainly does not mean he is going to win absolutely.
Getting out.
That's a great point. I thought it was an excellent question, actually, by that the last reporter there with that counterfactual. I thought it was a really interesting question and straightforward and well delivered. I thought, actually, the questions generally were quite good. Nicole, your thoughts after watching that?
Well, I think the reporter who asked the second question about the president mixing up Vladimir Putin and President Zelensky went right at what this is really about, right? Are you in decline, was his answer. And I thought it was a good moment for the journalists for having the courage to, those rooms can be intimidating. And it was a good moment for the president to take that on and give his answer. And again, it's not up to us.
I think the funniest part is, like, if he does end up dropping out in a couple years, or even if he doesn't end up dropping out, in a couple years, we'll look back at this and be like, how fucking insane that we thought this dude who was like very clearly in the throes of Alzheimer's, running desperately for office, when like he just couldn't even string coherent sentences together all the time. Like I think about that all the time. I'm literally like how are we like, to me, it seems unimaginable because I've been here for 5 fucking years. Like, it just sounds so stupid on paper. I can pull myself out of the immediacy of the situation and just look at it with a broader lens. And I'm just like, how is this a thing? Like, how is this even a question? It doesn't make sense at all. And I know we're just going to look back at it and be like, dude, that was crazy. Remember when the president couldn't fucking say words? And people were still like, yeah, no, for sure. We have to let him get across the finish line.
Us, it's up to the voters and it's up to the Democrats whether or not they accept that answer. I think that this is another split screen moment. I mean, my understanding is that tomorrow a political dam is likely to break. CBS News is reporting tonight that 40 Democrats are likely to break with President Joe Biden tomorrow. There's a report in ABC News that people who were at the Juneteenth event report seeing the Joe Biden that the world saw at the debate, an echo to the George Clooney letter from yesterday. I think we were reminded of all of this president's strengths. I think that the room disappeared when David Sanger of the New York Times asked this president about China, and you got the impression he would have stood there and talked to David Sanger for 45 more minutes. He wasn't in a hurry. He wasn't defensive. The tough questions in some ways served him better than anything else in the room. But I think that the other train is in motion. And I think, you know, 2 things on the politics. There's no incumbent president with lower approval ratings who won. There are only 3 with lower approval ratings than he has right now, and they all lost. Donald Trump, George H.W. Bush, and Jimmy Carter. So some of the political information is what worries some folks in his inner circle. And there is right now no poll that shows him winning.
Yeah, I think that's all well said. I mean, the political calculations, I thought, you know, him saying that I would drop out if they said there's no way he could win, and no poll shows that. Of course, no single poll could show that, right? So this is fundamentally him saying that is, to me, puts his finger on what has made this so difficult. And so
you feel like you watch a different press conference? No, you just don't understand what the media's motivations are. Like, mainstream media is going to hear him say, you know, how he beefed up NATO and how wonderful of a statesman he was. Okay. And they're going to respond I told you that they were going to respond like this even before the actual presser occurred. It's just like, these are things that Rachel Maddow cares about quite a bit. Okay. And chat said copium. And now we're watching them fucking do exactly what I told you they would do. What is Axios publicist scoop from Alex Thompson, who's been doing great work so far this election cycle? Anita Dunn, Bob Bauer, Jeff Zients, and Ron Klain. Biden shrunk his inner circle. They've been relegated below Biden's trio of longtime advisors plus FLOTUS, First Lady of the United States, top aide, a.k.a. the loyalty police. That's good. Biden's inner circle had already shrunk, and it's shrunk further since the June 2017 debate that has jeopardized Biden's reelection campaign. You've been having insane turnaround times on I Told You So's recently. I know, I'm kind of popping off with the vindication. It's vindication station up in this bitch. Over and over again. Oh my God. Yeah, the walls are closing in, baby. It's crazy because like another thing, another pattern that I've been mentioning quite frequently lately is that this is so Trumpian. Okay? It is so Trumpian, dude. Like this is literally what happened to Trump in 2020. Like unimaginable narcissism being the primary motivator for this man to stay in. And the chaos that it is causing internally inside of the party. That is what Trump did. That is exactly what Trump did in 2020. That is part of the reason why some of the moderates and independents in the suburbs shifted to the Democratic ticket. And Biden and the Democratic Party has been lasering in on those voters in the suburbs nonstop. And they're throwing the bag. They're throwing the independent and the moderate bag. It's crazy. Not really. Only Trump could be a Republican nominee. Biden can be replaced by any Dem. That you're right about that. Yes. The Republican Party is in a state of panic due to the success of a lot of the Republican party, and they've become too reactionary. You are right about that. I said this yesterday, and it bears repeating. The takeaway from this, yesterday's Biden presser, is that he is a malignant narcissist that's sowing chaos and disorder in the Democratic Party, which was, ironically, the strongest position the Dems had against Trump and the Republicans, especially among moderate voters and independents. The strongest thing that Biden has and the Democratic Party has going for it is that they're the adults in the room. They're the adults in the room. The strongest reason for why Biden was elected in 2020 as the presidential candidate in the primaries was that he was the method. He was the movement. He was the guy who was going to defeat Donald Trump. He's lost both of those things. He's lost it all. Anyway, but we're going to be talking about this and also Israel-Palestine, especially considering Brandon's ridiculous takes on Israel, saying that he's the most popular president in Israel, with Jeremy Scahill and Ryan Grimm, formerly of The Intercept. They've just started their new media project, and we'll be talking about that. I hope they're on right now. I'm also going to run the 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour right now as they are coming on to the stream. The dream team is here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get started. Let's get ready to rumble. Let me turn on my virtual camera so you guys can potentially see me. Let's see if it works.
There you are.
Can you guys see me?
I see you.
I can see you.
Oh, you can? Because on my end, it just shows my bald head.
I see your dog too.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay, let's pop this out. And then I'm actually going to turn off my camera so you guys can show up on stream. Here it is. Okay, what's going on, guys? I know that congratulations on the new venture. Let's get started on that. You guys started a new thing called Drop Site News.
Yep. Dropsitenews.com. We even have a URL. This is day 5 of the new thing. And it feels great. Like I thought, I figured, I don't know, Jeremy, how you were feeling about it, but I kind of figured we would know within 24 to 48 hours whether we were going to crash into the mountain. And this was just like the worst decision we'd ever made. Or if it was going to, get altitude. And I couldn't be happier about how the first week has gone.
Hell yeah. Well, congratulations. I'm very excited to see what you guys have done. You're already coming out with some pretty bold coverage so far. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, obviously, some of the things that you guys are working on. But before we get to that, before we get to Israel, Palestine, I guess like a good way to get into that, as a matter of fact, is Biden's ridiculous presser yesterday. Big hyper focus on foreign policy as expected. This is Biden's bread and butter. This is what he feels very comfortable talking about. Many conversations have been had over the way that he was able to speak on these issues. But I fear not a lot of conversations have been had about, how bad the Democratic Party's foreign policy is in general. So, I wanted to have you guys on to talk about that a little bit, to address that a little bit in the wake of NATO's 75-year anniversary.
Yeah, the part that really blew my mind about the kind of Democratic operative class's response that, like, this guy, like, he actually has a foreign affairs PhD, is all he did was sometimes, like, name the countries correctly. That was basically it. There was there was this one question from one of the reporters who said, "Look, hey, 2 years ago, you said that your sanctions policy against Russia was going to destroy the country. We at the time said to you, aren't you a little bit concerned that what you're doing with sanctions policy with regard to Russia is actually going to just tighten the bonds between China and Russia and won't actually have the effect that you want it to have?" And you said no, like, you were confident. Well, here we are 2 years later, and Russia and China are, tighter than ever. So what are you going to do to disrupt this alliance that you accidentally created? And his answer was just complete gibberish, like just gobbledygook. And so I don't see how you get to be a foreign policy kind of PhD when your own policies are just blowing back in your face, even on their own terms. It's kind of sad what passes for kind of a foreign policy ace in Washington.
Yeah, I think when it comes to American foreign policy, I feel like the defense contractors in general just simply want a guy who will say the talking points, and like, even if Donald Trump himself is not going to legitimately, blow up NATO in the way that people posture against Donald Trump, the fact that, like, his sentiment, the fact that he expresses like divisive rhetoric on foreign policy is enough for the DMV voters, the most important voters, the most significant constituency, the defense industry constituency, to say, oh, Donald Trump spells trouble for America's prospects in the future. And Biden is definitely better than Donald Trump on that front, is how they operate, in my opinion.
When people say this, they fear monger. Oh, Trump is going to be worse on Palestine, or oh, just imagine if Trump was president. We can have a discussion, and I covered Trump's foreign policy, military policy extensively. But what is that really doing? That is an attempt to remove Biden's responsibility for the genocide that he's currently enabling at this moment. I mean, think about the intellectual and moral bankruptcy involved with saying, but Trump will be worse, because inherent to that is implying that it's, what Biden is doing is acceptable, is an acceptable alternative to Trump.
Yeah.
And the fact is that, we don't actually know how many people have been killed in Gaza. 40,000 is the conservative estimate that has been put out by the health ministry in Gaza, a health ministry that's been devastated, that is, its ability to actually track dead bodies is very limited. I was recently in Turkey, and I was doing some interviews there, and I was with a family. Two of the individuals from that family from Gaza, a mother and her daughter, had been pulled out of the rubble of their building, and they managed to be evacuated, from Gaza. I mean, the scope of what Joe Biden has facilitated armed, bankrolled, offered political, diplomatic, legal support. The scope of the utter devastation that this man has unleashed on the people of Gaza should never be forgotten or forgiven. So when people say, well, Trump would be worse, that's not the conversation to have right now. The conversation to have right now is, what have you done and what are you doing to stop this genocide?
Absolutely.
And, I've been, I broke 2 stories this week. I've been working for a sustained period on examining Hamas's view of the past 9 months of the events of October 7th. And we can talk about that in depth later if you want, but just one bit of analysis that's relevant to things that happened yesterday at the press conference and then today on Biden's official Twitter feed, the POTUS Twitter feed. Biden is putting out and he's saying, well, we have an agreement on a framework for ceasefire negotiations. My understanding from people within Hamas is that Hamas and other groups that are participating in a consultative process about what position Hamas is going to take in the negotiations. There's several armed factions that have been joining in the fighting against Israel in Gaza, and they have authorized Hamas to be the negotiator on behalf of all those groups. This level of nuance is never mentioned in the U.S. press, but it's not just Hamas, and they have their own way of processing decision making. And what they're saying is, from their perspective, they are willing to make what would be a significant concession. What Hamas is saying is that they have an agreement that they can put on the table, that they are willing to engage in a phased ceasefire. Typically, what Hamas's position has been is they will only enter a ceasefire negotiation if there is a clear path to an end to Israel's aggression against Gaza. What they are saying now is that they are willing to entertain the possibility of an initial 6-week phase where there would be a ceasefire. And during this time, there would be an exchange of captives. The women and civilians that Hamas is holding and female soldiers would be handed over to Israel. And in return, Israel would free as many as 900 Palestinians who are being held in Israeli jails, prisons, and administrative detention. And among these, my understanding is that there would be somewhere in the ballpark of 150 people that are serving lengthy prison sentences, people that Hamas would consider to be sort of more political prisoners. But Hamas's condition to the mediators is that if we are willing to pull back this insistence that there has to, at the start, be a guarantee of a permanent ceasefire and a withdrawal of Israeli forces, that it's clearly defined, we want the guarantors, the United States, Qatar, and Egypt, to certify that Israel will maintain that ceasefire as we negotiate the second phase of the agreement. And in the second phase of the agreement, Israel and the United States are insisting that all of the remaining captives in Gaza be handed over to Israel, including male soldiers. And Hamas, in return, would get prisoners freed from Israeli prison who are referred to as the impossibles, people who are in Israeli prisons because they're members of armed resistance groups or because they have killed Israelis, or they've been sentenced for killing Israelis. Now, the nuance here is that Hamas has not formally agreed to this right now. Hamas has said, we are willing to move forward with this, but we need those kinds of guarantees. And now we get to Biden last night at his press conference at NATO. He says, well, Hamas and Israel have agreed on a framework for the negotiations. And then he tweeted it this afternoon, and then you had journalists in Washington running around and saying, oh my God, Biden has secured the ceasefire deal. What I think is happening here is that they're doing a front run on Hamas. And what they're trying to do is say that an agreement has been finalized, that my understanding as of now is that it has not been finalized on the framework, and that they want to try to create a situation where if Hamas now says, well, wait a minute, we didn't get the guarantees we were asking for, they are going to say Hamas once again has sabotaged
it. Yeah.
the process that the Israelis and the Americans have engaged in. I go to the great lengths to explain this in detail, Hassan, because so much of the reporting is a cartoon version of what is actually happening.
Yeah.
And that goes from, the origin story of what happened on October 7th all the way to the present moment. And Israel, the final thing I'll say is, my understanding is Israel is also now trying to add conditions that were not even in the document that Israel itself submitted to Biden and that Biden has been promoting. So, I've studied this very closely. I'm talking to primary people. I've also spoken to Israeli negotiators, and I have the very clear sense that Hamas is exhibiting a tremendous amount of flexibility, and it's the Israelis that are intentionally trying to sabotage a deal, because I don't think that Netanyahu is truly interested in freeing the hostages. I think he's primarily interested in annihilating the Palestinians of Gaza.
Absolutely. I mean, this is perhaps best represented in the past 2 months now, since Biden's revelation of the three-phase negotiation plan, ceasefire proposal with a permanent end of the hostilities proposal that he claimed from the start was Israel's own proposal, that Hamas was actually sullying, which, if you pay even a little bit of attention to Israeli news, was exactly the opposite, where even if this was a proposal that Israel tried to, at least through legalese, hide the more nefarious elements on, they very openly, in the way that they were communicating to their own citizens, were very much against it. There has never been a moment where Benjamin Netanyahu, let alone his own members of his own party in the Knesset, has ever actually thought that this was a good proposal. They were the ones who were refusing. Hamas and Hamas leadership and other envoys routinely said that they were actually very much in favor of this negotiation because it was identical. Even John Kirby himself, or not, it wasn't John Kirby, sorry, Blinken himself actually admitted that this was identical to the Hamas proposal presented in February in one of his conversations. So, ultimately, it has always been the Israeli side that has refused to negotiate in good faith, and yet the narrative that the White House and the narrative that the media has went along with from the White House was always that it was Hamas that was ruining the proposal. So I suspect that is what they're trying to gear up for by adding additional claims onto it. And I do fear that now, because the entire conversation is revolving around Biden's ineptitude and Biden's cognitive decline, that the media interest, the media appetite in covering what's going on in Gaza is taking a back seat to that, even though these two conversations, in my opinion, should be had together, because time and time again, Biden's mental decline has played a formative role in shaping the narrative, like on October 8 or 9 or, early on in October when he came out and said he saw 40 beheaded babies. He saw the pictures and then reiterated that position where he said he saw a family being lit on fire only as recently as a couple months ago. None of these things are real. And his staffers, every step of the way, would go to the media and be like, he didn't see that. We don't know where he came from. We don't know where this information is coming from. It's just like a manifestation in his own mind.
And he said this thing last night. Then at the press conference, he says, look at my numbers in Israel. He's like, I mean, it's like when you're in the position that Biden's in, he's basically saying, look at my poll numbers in Israel. Yeah. But one other thing is, and we make this point in the drop site reporting, that both Biden and Netanyahu's political futures are woven into this situation right now. But I think for Netanyahu, there's a popular line that's sort of that Netanyahu wants to stretch this along because he's under criminal investigation in Israel. His popularity is going down. He already was kind of on the ropes politically, and he needs to stretch this on because then he loses power. I think that's true to an extent. It's a factor. But I think there's something much more sinister at play with why Netanyahu wants to stretch this on. And it's that he sees this as his historic legacy, that he can actually, go full in. He can erase Gaza as a Palestinian territory. And I think that is is a much darker reality than he's just trying to hold on to power. He's trying to hold on to power as a kind of cynical, Washington style view of it. This is not House of Cards. This is much worse. This is someone who has genocidal intent, whose entire life project was prevent the establishment of a unified Palestinian state and to annihilate Palestinians who refuse to submit to apartheid.
Yeah. Also, one more statement about the ridiculousness of claiming that you are more popular in Israel than you are in the United States is that Donald Trump, according to a poll published last week on Channel 12, is actually more popular than Biden. Channel 12 found that 48% of Israelis prefer Donald Trump to be the next U.S. president compared to 27% who prefer Biden. So, like, he's wrong on every account. And it's obviously a ridiculous thing to fucking say, oh, I'm more popular in Israel than I am here, which is like, you're not running for president in Israel, okay? The fuck? Why would you ever say that? But regardless, Donald Trump is ironically more popular in Israel than he is. So there it is.
Oh, and of course he is, because if Biden, pauses 2,000 pound bomb shipment for 1 week, then it's a huge betrayal, and Israeli politicians talk about how they need to reevaluate their entire relationship with the Democratic Party. How could they possibly do this? And so you would have to bear hug only the entire time. Like you say one thing critical, you're going to be down in the 20s. And it's hilarious, that he's almost losing 2-1 to Trump. Hopefully he's closer to Trump in the U.S. than he is in Israel.
Well, the thing is, also, of course, Trump is more popular in Israel. Israel somehow is even more reactionary than the United States of America in their politics. They are currently directly participating, not by way of like our defense contracts or anything, but directly participating in an ethnic cleansing campaign. Of course, they're fucking significantly more reactionary and prefer Donald Trump. Anyway. But yeah, the reason why I bring this up is because I think it is a bullshit narrative to claim that Biden is this brilliant elder statesman who has done a phenomenal job in terms of foreign policy. Israel being one of the most obvious instances where his foreign policy flub is the most glaring, in my opinion. The bear-hugging Netanyahu strategy, as you guys also pointed out, has been a genuine fucking failure from the start. Excuse me, I'm sorry for cursing. I know your mother is watching, Jeremy, but
always.
Yeah, but it's just objectively ridiculous. But as long as he just says the right things and doesn't call Zelensky President Putin, the media is going to go, oh yeah, no, he's being so presidential. This is like in the early Trump era, when all of these like CNN commentators like Van Jones, former Maoist Van Jones, would come out and be like, this is Trump's presidential moment. He's appearing presidential. They're doing that now for Biden. And you can tell when The Hill and NPR and all these other like mainstream institutions are saying like, maybe the poor debate may not have hurt Biden as much as we previously thought. And they're doing pickup.
My mom just texted me, why are all these people saying hello to me now?
Oh, yeah. Everyone in the chat is.
You guys are making her night, man. She watches everything I do. She caught me once on this show, and now she randomly watches it. It's kind of amazing.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Hi, Jeremy's mom.
Anyway, but
what you're saying, this is also true. Like I think, to be president of the United States, to one degree or another, you're a sociopath, or you become one very abruptly. And Joe Biden's entire career, and we've talked about it on this show before. I mean, Joe Biden's entire career when it comes to Israel has just been a continuous defense of the most extreme criminality of the Israeli state. And he's constantly reiterating, that his relationship with Israel began sitting across from Golda Meir. And, there's a whole other story about how he exaggerated what happened in his meetings with Golda Meir. But, I think there's real questions about to what extent was Biden, with his, incapacitated mental state at times, driving this policy versus, fully with it, criminal minds like Antony Blinken and Jake Sullivan. And the answer to that, I think, will tell us a lot, about what's happened here. But the reality is this is the face of the American empire when it comes to policy on Israel. Rashid Khalidi, who is widely considered to be the leading U.S. historian on Palestine, one of the top historians in the world, who is actually quite careful in his comments on these issues, said that it is clear that Netanyahu is in charge of the American policy right now, that it's the tail wagging the dog. And, I'd resisted thinking that for a while because I think it lets the U.S. off the hook when you say, oh, it's Israel running the policy. This is, a U.S. policy. But in this particular case, Netanyahu has put Biden into check and possibly mate with this situation now because he's managed to endure and survive and receive U.S. weapons and support and defense for going on into 10 months now. The election is on the horizon. Biden is a severely weakened political candidate. And the reality is that even if they sign some sort of a ceasefire in this phased manner that looks like it's going to happen, it could be a paper tiger because Netanyahu can resume the war at any time. Biden has made clear he's not going to cut off the weapons. He stretches it into November. Let's say Trump wins in November. Then what? You have lame duck Biden. What's he going to do? He is not going to have the last thing he does before he leaves office, cut off Israel. That's not going to happen. And then you start having these kind of Reagan-esque discussions between Trump and Netanyahu. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if there was a plan to relocate every Palestinian that manages to survive in Gaza to, under Trump and Kushner, they find some way to just get rid of them all. But that's not a way of saying, oh, but look what Trump is going to do. Biden made that possible. That's the fact that no one can escape. Biden has set this entire thing up.
Yeah. Just like Biden also allowed all of this to happen by not reversing any of Trump's decision on Israel, like continuing along with Trump's policies on Israel. Trump greatly escalated this conflict by just taking the reins off Israel completely in terms of moving the embassy to Jerusalem, in terms of the Abraham Accords, like setting up the Abraham Accords and having Jared Kushner be the point guy that completely sidestepped the Palestinians in this conversation. Biden could have gone back on any number of those things and maybe not like move the embassy back, but the annexation, recognizing the permanent annexation of Golan Heights, like all of this stuff allowed Israel to feel emboldened, and it is legitimately concerning that this is the worst political instinct in this moment at a time when international organs of justice are at odds with the American state, and all the American state is communicating in terms of defending Israel, because even from the perspective of those, let's say I'm in the State Department for a brief moment in this hypothetical, like I would be very concerned with Biden's mishandling of Israel, with Biden's understanding of foreign policy, because it greatly diminishes America's soft power capabilities in the future, and shows the rest of the world that America is asleep at the wheel when it comes to Israel, that Israel gets to do whatever it wants, and it puts them at odds with the rest of the Western world even.
Yeah, and not only did it embolden Israel, but it also pushed, and Jeremy had some of this in his first piece. Curious for his take on this. The Abraham Accords really pushed Hamas into a place of desperation for the Palestinian cause, because now you were getting to a place where you were going to have, if the Abraham Accords continued on, normalization with all the other Middle East countries with Israel, by completely sidestepping the Palestine question. That was Kushner's entire insight, and so then Biden picked up where Kushner left off. That's the incredible part. And so you have Hamas, sagging in popularity. The economy is completely in shambles, and the world is acting as though they're going to move on without ever grappling with this question. Just going to leave this situation as it is, with creeping annexation in the West Bank and a tightening chokehold around Gaza. And so with that as the context, October 7th you don't know what's going to happen on October 7th, but you're basically overdetermining it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I mean,
since
remember
then,
that for
go ahead.
20 plus. So yeah, just one point on that. For 20 plus years, the posture of the Arab nations and Muslim nations that had not normalized quote unquote relations with Israel was that any normalization would necessitate a resolution on the question of Palestine and Palestinian statehood. And, of course, the Palestinian people feel utterly betrayed by so many of these Arab nations that have stood by as Israel has quote unquote mowed the lawn, seized their territory, consistently killing them, locking them up, implementing an apartheid state, putting the blockade on Gaza, engaging in collective punishment, putting people on a restricted calorie existence, and they do nothing. And then you have, Trump starting to broker these agreements with Jared Kushner. Biden, as you say, rightly, picks up the mantle. And 2 weeks before October 7th, Netanyahu appears at the United Nations to give a speech at the General Assembly. Almost everyone boycotted it. No one was there except his, minions. But he gave the speech anyway, and he is talking about the new Middle East and what a change this is going to be. It's going to connect Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, and Israel is going to be this sort of new Silk Road. And he displays a map where Gaza and the West Bank do not exist as Palestinian lands. And I'm not saying that was the motivation for October 7th. I'm saying that Hamas's assessment from the end of the 2021 bombing, which Biden also supported, and then 2 days after Biden called Netanyahu to tell him it was over, it was over. But for those 2 years, they watched and they were deeply concerned about Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia, for its own purposes, the Saudis are not, are motivated by a number of factors here, including that they want to become a nuclear power. And there's a whole other track that the United States is dealing with the Saudis on that is linked to any agreement that they make with Israel. But there were indications that the Saudis were going to settle for some circumvention of Palestinian statehood in their negotiations with Israel. And Hamas, as Ryan said, was concerned about the internal situation in Gaza, was watching a ratcheting up, particularly under Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, of settler violence, which was sponsored by the state, of the defiling of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the single holiest site in Islam and Palestine. You had a decrepit, corrupt Palestinian authority under Mahmoud Abbas that was basically like a Bantustan, like a Vichy regime there that was doing the bidding of Israel, not only arresting people that Israel said were a security threat, but attacking labor unions, activists, dissidents, journalists, writers, deeply, deeply unpopular. And I think that Hamas felt that this was the historic moment where they needed to take action or it was finished. And so that's what I think the motivation was behind October 7th. They wanted to entirely shatter the paradigm, not only on Gaza, but to call the question on a Palestinian state. And they don't see, even if there is a ceasefire or an end to the intense slaughter that's happening in Gaza, my sense is that they believe that the world has changed now and there is no return, that this is the beginning of a march onward that they believe is going to end in victory against Israel. And I think some Israelis recognize that this is not something like 2021, 2014, 2009. This is far more serious. There is an incendiary situation in the West Bank right now. The conditions potentially for a third intifada are starting to present themselves. And if Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas were to openly endorse an intifada, then I think we would be looking at a very, very serious situation. On top of this genocide.
Yeah, and what is the expectation, really? 500 plus deaths in the West Bank since October 7. Many children, many of them children as well. Like it's just completely unacceptable. And you have former members of the Shin Bet when they do their like little woke tours, and they always come out and they're like, "Oh yeah, we hate the situation in the West Bank. Like we have to We have to dial back on the situation in the West Bank. Like their calls have fallen on deaf ears time and time again. You have thousands of people being arrested, being permanently detained with no due process whatsoever, and it's understandable that it's a powder keg in the West Bank as well. By the way, while we were having this conversation, a chatter informed me that the International Court of Justice will deliver its advisory opinion in respect of the legal consequences arising from the policies and practices of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. This will happen on July 19th on Friday at 3 p.m. So there's also that coming down. There was also reports of Benjamin Netanyahu saying that he's fearful to travel to, I believe it was Hungary even, that, in fears of due to not the ICJ, but the ICC's decision or the preliminary stages of the warrant application that is being processed at the moment for his arrest. That hasn't come down yet, but I suspect that will happen sometime soon, maybe even before his travel to the United States of America that's upcoming in July 24th, in a couple weeks, as a matter of fact, to speak to the Congress, which is ridiculous. But, that's another glaring misstep, in my opinion, that harms America's soft power opportunities. Not that I care about that sort of thing. Ideologically, I'm not in favor of America having this much influence over the global stage. But even if you are someone who cares about that sort of thing, even if you're one of these like NATO guys, right? This is something that should be a cause for concern. But yeah, I don't know what this will look like. I don't know if you guys knew that this was coming. The ICJ.
I didn't know that. I didn't know the timing, but yeah, they're moving more quickly than they typically tend to move. And I think one thing that's going on is that I've done some reporting on this. We'll have stuff over at Dropsite probably in a couple of weeks about the coordinated efforts around the world to bring charges. And so I think the ICC has competition here. Like the ICC. William Ruto, I think he was a Kenyan president now, is one of the first ones ever indicted by the ICC. But there were not people clamoring around the world to kind of go after Ruto. But in this case, like the world is outside of the United States so shocked at what's going on that there are prosecutors and judges all over that are looking at what kind of accountability could be coming, and so that could be why the ICC might be moving a little quicker than it has in the past. But the United States might end up being one of the few places where he can safely travel going forward.
Yeah, I mean that's probably all. That's probably all that they need. Like that's probably all Netanyahu needs. But that it's still a tremendous amount of pressure applied as Israel continues to become a pariah state for very good reasons. This should have obviously happened at any number of different points over the course of the past 76 years of apartheid and ethnic cleansing, but it is happening now in a way that I don't think the Israeli public even fully comprehends. So Israel's motivations, Israel's actions show that they are not exactly aware of this, or maybe they are aware of it and they're trying to just finish the job to the best of their ability, considering that, and this is another chatter from Israel who's bringing this up. Two notable recent decisions. First was the passing of all civil affairs in Area C to the deputy head of the CA and appointed an appointee responsible not to the military, but to Smotrich, who is a settler himself, the finance minister who's incredibly reactionary alongside Itamar Ben-Gvir, for those of you who don't know, in the defense ministry. The second is a law that passed its first calling yesterday, allowing Israeli building enforcement in certain areas of Area B. Nothing creeping about this. This is rapid and de jure. Biden's complete silence here opens a window for more explicit declarative recognitions under Trump. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The way that basically works, actually, your audience is probably pretty familiar with this, but allowing Israeli authority in Area B means, so in order to kind of build, like in anywhere else, you need a permit if you're going to build, you're going to add a bathroom, you're going to add a spare bedroom to your house. What Israel does is basically make it impossible for Palestinians, homeowners, either to prove that they own the home or to get a permit to build this extra bedroom or to put on, you want to put a back porch on, whatever. And so a lot of people, they do it anyway. Like the
But
house
it's not
is
even
overcrowded. You need a bathroom.
Yeah, it's not even just bathrooms
So-
and bedrooms, by the way. It's wells, it's water wells. Like it's very
Yes,
significant parts of infrastructure that
anything.
like Palestinians need to survive.
So then the guy will show up at the door. Now that they have this authority, they'll be like, oh, hey, look, I don't see a permit for this well. I don't see a permit for this chair that you have out in the front yard. We're confiscating your property. And it's done legally. Like this is, I'm an agent of the court here. We believe in the rule of law. Everybody out, settlers in. So yeah, that's not good at all for anybody who's on the other end of that.
Yeah. And it seems like with the change of power in European allies, like America's close European allies, with the Labour Party in the UK, with Keir Starmer, unfortunately, leading the helm, but also with the new coalition government in France, which is openly and outwardly, especially with France Insoumise, being significantly more pro-Palestinian than prior leadership. You also run into you run into more American soft power diminishing in Europe specifically, or at least like on this issue alone, on the issue of Israel alone, like America getting pushed aside even further. Now I don't know. I don't know what Keir Starmer will do. I suspect that he is probably going to continue being as outwardly pro-Israel as the previous government, especially with the weapons contracts that they have. But who knows? Who knows what happens there? Because Keir Starmer has made some post-election. He has made some interesting decisions in terms of like putting people in the positions of power that were very critical of Israel. So who knows? But
look at
Go ahead, Trevor.
I mean, well, the limits of what we can expect from someone like a Keir Starmer, or even if Bernie Sanders, were making decisions for the United States. At the beginning, in the immediate aftermath of October 7th, and for several months, Sanders was his politics were not great on this. He's certainly critical of Netanyahu, but his position on ceasefire was deeply problematic for a sustained period of time. And now what Bernie has shifted to is his entire criticism or critique of the genocidal Israeli war against the people of Gaza it's Netanyahu's extremist policies. It's Netanyahu's extreme government. It's Netanyahu's extreme cabinet. This is a line that's been picked up then by Schumer and Pelosi. And it's kind of, this is the way that they've reconciled their way of criticizing it, that they're putting it all on the bad ship Netanyahu. And the thing that none of them want to talk about is that whether you had a so-called liberal government in Israel or you had Netanyahu, the policy would have been a massive war of annihilation against the people of Palestine that live in Gaza, and that's what none of these people want to talk about. It's easy, especially this late in the game of genocide, to start saying, "Oh my God, we need to end this," and it's all Netanyahu's fault. But the reality is that this was made possible because of politicians within the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And in the case of Britain, there's a slight difference. Jeremy Corbyn would have been militantly opposed to this. Jeremy Corbyn has a lifelong record of standing on the side of Palestinian liberation. He would have been, I think, a transformative figure. But Sanders himself gave us an indication of how he would have approached this. I don't think he would have been as catastrophic as Biden by any stretch of the imagination. But if that's the best that we have to offer, in terms of people that can get close to winning the presidency, it explains a lot about the policy.
No, absolutely. I agree. It's shocking to me that more Democrats and more like center left or center right politicians have not shifted their position in the same way that Bernie Sanders has to liberal Zionism in an effort to like defend the next steps forward into continuation of Israel's apartheid. It actually is, I think, a shocking display of the worst political instincts that these people have in positions of power, for sure. The only reason why I brought up Keir Starmer as a potential is because Starmer, obviously, when running for election, ahead of the election, time and time again reiterated his commitment to Israel and stated that, Israel has a right to defend itself, much like Bernie Sanders has as well, and that he would not pronounce that something is either genocide or not. But he also said that every country, including Israel, has to be properly held in account in the Court of International Law. David Lammy, the new foreign secretary, who is expected to visit Israel soon, broke ranks with the UK's official line in late May when he backed the International Criminal Court's independence after it sought arrest warrants for Israeli officials. We saw that from a lot of European leadership, including Germany, which has been super far right on the issue of Israel, where like the ICC decision was seen as fairly significant. And that all of these officials did openly say that the ICC does have jurisdiction and they are allowed to operate and they're allowed to continue with their application for an arrest warrant. Richard Hermer, the new Attorney General, is the reason why I'm bringing this up. However, chosen by Starmer, is one of the interesting appointments in the new government. He has criticized Israel. He specializes in human rights law. And he decried the former government's push to criminalize boycott campaigns and was among a group of small Jewish lawyers who wrote an open letter reminding Israel of its international obligations at the start of the war. So I think that is why, maybe I'm trying to be as hopeful and as optimistic as possible, but there is definitely, it seems, a little bit of a change of pace in the way that Keir Starmer has conducted himself before the election versus the decision making within the Labour Party in terms of appointment and even in terms of communicating certain positions, like Starmer hinting that Britain could recognize Palestine before US or Israel. This is today from The Telegraph. Prime Minister repeating calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and insisting UK's Middle East policy won't follow anyone else. This feels a little bit like a shift in the attitude that the Tory government had.
Yeah, well, certainly it's a shift from the public posture of the Tory government. But again, we're entering now month 10 of the genocide. Yeah. And I think you're going to see the dam is going to break on this as as the historical legacy of what has taken place starts to become clearer and clearer. You can go back not that long ago to David Lammy making atrocious statements in defense of Israel, promoting lies that were told, that some of which you cited, Hassan, earlier in this program. Yeah. I think it's this is to an extent. We should welcome any shift to a position that has justice at its center for the Palestinian people, certainly. But let's be clear that there is also cynical politicking here. There's an understanding of the tides of history and which direction that they're headed in. So, if Keir Starmer and others are going to take a moral position on this, an ethical position on this, that should be welcome. But we shouldn't forget what has happened the past 10 months with these individuals.
You're right. You're 100% right.
So, the nuance is important, but I think we have to keep that in mind. And we've seen Biden doing that too, where Biden has, started to be more open in his denunciation of Netanyahu and took some symbolic actions. But at the same time, none of this would have happened if these people had listened to those that actually understood what was happening before it became a genocide. And that's a huge part of the problem that we have.
Yeah. And make no mistake, of course, Starmer's rise to power within the ranks of the Labour Party directly came with the issue of Israel specifically. I mean, the Corbyn wing of the party was sabotaged, openly sabotaged by the more conservative Labour members that used cynically deployed the calls of anti-Semitism towards him and other more radical, more progressive members, more progressive wing of the Labour Party. So I'm not saying that I'm all too hopeful. I'm simply talking about this kind of communication being another instance where there is maybe some pressure points against American foreign policy and American dominance. Because if these countries do break away from the United States of America, even as like a means of PR to whitewash their previous actions, I think that moves the needle in a more hopeful direction. All things considered, in a direction that will hopefully bring about some kind of ceasefire in the short term.
Can I ask Ryan a question? Even though I talk to Ryan all day long, but it's something I haven't asked him that is related to this. You had this Bernie Sanders tape the other day, defending Biden and his candidacy, and AOC, came out backing Biden. What's going on with what's going on with AOC and Bernie that they're doing this right now? That they're like, no, Biden is our dude, ride or die.
My read is there's a couple things going on. One is that they understand and they have been told that nothing they say is going to influence Biden positively. And in fact, if they see if the left is seen as leading this charge, then actually it could have caused the censors like Schumer and Jeffries and others to dig in more. So that's the strategic element. Then there's their own little game theory where like nobody cares what they think, in the sense that if Biden does drop out and is replaced by somebody, everybody will forget what the hell the members of the squad and Bernie said. If by some chance he stays in and wins, which is getting to a nil possibility, then people will remember, oh yeah, they stuck with him. So it's some cynical calculation there. But the actual thing going on, I think, is related to the fact that Cori Bush and Ilhan Omar both have competitive primaries. And if you look at the way that, say, Summer Lee and Jamal Bowman ran their primaries, Summer Lee much more effectively, she didn't run as like, I'm a radical, I'm going to shake up the Democratic Party. But she ran for re-election hugging Joe Biden. Like, Democratic primary voters are loyal Democrats and are far more partisan than kind of Republicans are, actually. Like in the Republican primaries, everybody runs kind of against the Republican elites that don't even really exist anymore, but they all run against Mitt Romney. In the Democratic primary, Ilhan Omar is running ads with Joe Biden saying nice things about Omar, and Bush is, going to organize a lot of her campaign around like, I fought for the IRA, I fought for all of this money that that I helped bring back to St. Louis, and so it just makes it awkward at that point to then be trashing or to be saying that Biden should step down when the ads that you're running on television are Biden endorsing you. So they're in this really weird spot where they have to hug him, get reelected. So I think that's actually secretly kind of what's driving a lot of that, even though all the rest of it is also true.
Thank you for saying all of that, because I've been literally saying this nonstop to everyone in this community for the past week, and everyone has been yelling at me and saying I just love AOC so much, and that's why I'm just coping. Now that you've said it, I hope people will listen. Beyond that, I think there was another thing I wanted to mention that that plays off of exactly what you mentioned, is that with Jamal Bowman, we saw an unprecedented amount of money being dumped into this primary race, a historic amount. And obviously it was AIPAC subsidiaries, but they didn't really talk about the issue of Israel or Jamal Bowman's radical positions on Israel at all. One thing that they talked about quite frequently was something that Jamal Bowman did in defense of Biden's policies, but they were able to successfully present this move where he originally voted against it voted to not separate Biden's own policy in defense of Biden alongside the progressives as a way to claim that Jamal Bowman was not going to play ball with Joe Biden, and that he was actually a radical who was against Biden's policies. And that worked. That worked very well, which was ironic because, of course, Latimer had openly said that he would step aside and be at odds with Biden's policies, and he 100% will be at odds with Biden's policies if he becomes the representative in terms of like if the Biden administration wins and then they do push for some kind of tax increases. Latimer has openly said he is not going to allow that to happen. But regardless, in terms of the political calculation that the progressives are making, you're absolutely correct, I think. that
Yeah.
you know, there is nothing to lose for them when they come out in support of Biden because they're already the progressive wing anyway.
Right. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And yeah, that was that vote on the infrastructure bill. And yeah, he voted no because, Manchin and Sinema and Gottheimer and others had not committed getting the rest of the agenda through. Although, they wanted the infrastructure, but not all the rest of Build Back Better. So yeah, it was the most cynical thing ever because it was literally a vote in defense of the Biden agenda. And it was used as say, yeah, look at this disloyal guy who voted against infrastructure spending. How crazy is he? Got to get rid of him. And it's a sad reality that, Democratic primary voters might actually agree with the Sanders wing on a lot of things, but any time that they get seen as being disloyal Democrats, they just walk away from them. It's a very difficult kind of terrain to try to organize in and win on.
Yeah. Well, guys, are there any things that you would like to discuss that you haven't gotten to yet before I
wanted to say
back
something
to...
about the site that we're doing, about drop site.
Yes.
I was one of the people that co-founded The Intercept, and 11 years ago with Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras, and Ryan's been there for more than 7 years, was the DC bureau chief, and really was a really influential figure in broadening out the reach of The Intercept and building up a really serious coverage of politics in Washington. And of course, Ryan also does foreign policy and has been doing great work on Pakistan and also on Gaza. And we really made a run to try to, in our view, save that place. And there were internal disagreements over vision. The board didn't want to take it in the direction that Ryan and I wanted to take it, and we left. And and we left to start something that we believe is going to be a lean, sustainable, hard-hitting news organization that is focused on doing investigative journalism. And investigative journalism takes time. It costs money. We're starting from scratch. And we have some people that stepped up and gave us a modest amount of seed money to get this thing rolling. And it's a little bit scary when it's like jumping off a cliff, in the dark, and you don't know if you're going to hit water or sharp rocks. And that's sort of where we're at. But we've been overwhelmed by how many people have hit that subscribe button. We're at about almost 120,000 subscribers right now. That's total subscribers. That's not paid subscribers. We're seeing like a great uptick in people that are actually paying to subscribe. And the thing is, though, that comes with fear, or like uncertainty, it reminds you of what it was like to be a hungry young journalist. That you're in that game because you want to be there, because there's a passion burning in your heart. And I feel actually a sense of relief that we're starting from scratch, and that I'm doing this with Ryan, because I think we're on the same page about what we want to do. And for me, I feel like it's going back to my roots. I begged my way into an unpaid gig working for Amy Goodman at Democracy Now! And I literally would write her actual letters and say, if you have a dog, I'll walk your dog. And if you have a cat, I'll go feed your cat. And she either had to get a restraining order against me or like agree to like let me come and volunteer. And I get a little bit emotional when I think about it, because she had no reason to take a chance on me, and she did. And I've watched her build up what I think is the most important independent news program, 5 days a week on radio and TV in this country. And what Ryan and I want to do is build not just an independent news organization, but a non-aligned news organization. And what we mean by that is, we're not interested in toxic turf wars with people. That doesn't help people in Gaza. That doesn't expose injustice. That doesn't help people who are struggling or suffering. And good journalism at its best saves people. It confronts bad guys. It takes big swings at the powerful with no fear or favor. And so, we want people to support this news organization. And it feels good to actually walk around knowing we're accountable to the people that support our journalism and read our journalism. So, you have a great crew of people. I love coming on this show because I get really thoughtful comments from people who've never heard of the work that I do or Ryan does. It's a totally different audience of people. And I have huge respect for what you're doing and the exposure to these kinds of issues that you're bringing to audiences that may not normally pay attention to it. And you have a great audience, and we'd love for them to join us as well at dropsitenews.com.
Yeah. How can like what would be the best possible thing that people can do in this community for you guys at this moment?
But yeah, I mean, go if you go right there, dropsitenews.com, and sign up just to get the free emails. That's the first step. Like that's great because when we have a story, it's going to get emailed out to you. If you can be a paying subscriber, you can do that. It's I think $9 a month or something like that. And that's the thing that like makes it sustainable. If you're like a super rich Hassan fan, like then we've got donate.dropsitenews.com where you can actually it's tax deductible. We're a fiscally sponsored C3. It's a nonprofit news organization. So at donate.dropsitenews.com, you can make a tax deductible contribution. But what I also would like about that is that, to Jeremy's point, I like being accountable to this kind of audience. Like that's who I want us to be accountable to. And you may not know, you played a significant role in our kind of decision about what to do at the Intercept. Because as it was getting hot internally, I reached out to you and also to the boys over at Chapo. I was like, look, if Jeremy and I, went out independently and built something new, would you have our back? And both you guys immediately were like, yes. And what I see us as, and that gave us a lot of confidence, like internally, and to move forward. And what I kind of see us as is the kind of investigative journalism arm of like the Hassan Chapo axis, that crew like needs an independent investigative news outlet that is producing material that is letting you know what's going on in the world. We can't produce at the volume of the New York Times, but we can pick our spots. We can hit them hard, and we can hit all the malevolent actors that are out there pretty hard. And we're going to get taken seriously, which is my favorite part of all this, because we're in this not just to like produce pretty articles, but to like produce work that has to be reckoned with by centers of power. So thank you for that. Yeah, for that that vote of confidence at a moment when we were kind of in the thick of it.
Of course,
it's all true. Let me just on one last note. There was a brief window of time when I was allowed on like CNN and MSNBC, and like I was on fairly regularly when I did Blackwater, about the mercenary company, especially when Bush was in power. They loved me on MSNBC. But if you look at how a lot of those big institutional media outlets are configured, they have their own kind of self-licking ice cream cone, where they're in an enclosed media ecosystem. The Washington Post people are on Morning Joe, or like they're all doing their thing, and they create this sort of echo chamber of their own. And I was talking to a friend about it today when I was explaining your show, Hassan, and I was saying that like, in the same way that it's important that there's cross-pollination with like-minded media organizations, what Ryan is saying is true. We can build an informal network of non-aligned media institutions that share some basic sort of spirit and ideas, and you create a different ecosystem, because the world has radically changed. No one is watching those shows. No, people are not reading those newspapers.
Yeah.
They're not reaching new audiences. They're not thinking outside of the box. This stuff that we did on Hamas, they should have been doing this for the past 10 months.
Yeah,
why no one's thinking to say like, hey, let's try to understand. We're told these are the new Nazis, that these people are the greatest threat in the world, so much of a threat that the US has to facilitate a genocide. Maybe we should talk to those people. So I think what we have here is an opportunity to sort of move away from some of the toxicity that helps no one, find the common ground that we have, and build our own ecosystem of non-aligned media entities.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately, in domestic affairs, we saw this with East Palestine, Ohio, that when there's enough of a stink that is brought up on TikTok and other places outside of the sphere of influence of mainstream media, it actually causes mainstream media, which obviously has an interest in maintaining its veneer of legitimacy and credibility, to cover those stories with a different approach. Because East Palestine, Ohio was a train derailment. There are 1,000 train derailments that occur every year. So, of course, no news editor at a serious media outlet is ever going to cover it. They're not going to look at that. They're going to be like, what do you mean? There's 3 of them a fucking day. But once that became like a serious point of contention, and the story itself actually became, why is major media not talking about this? It kind of forced the hands of CNN and MSNBC and all of these other places to actually cover this train derailment and the chemical spill that actually harmed the lives of these people in this small town. And I think what's going on in Palestine with the Israeli ethnic cleansing campaign is almost identical. That for the past 20, 30, 40 years, American mainstream media has rarely ever discussed the issue of the Israeli apartheid on terms that ever gave dignity or humanity or even recognition to the Palestinians as human beings, right? And now, because of the groundswell, because of the previously unimaginable amount of real momentum, real support, and posturing coming from the younger generation, the attitudes that the younger generation has, and the reality that they see on the ground due to all of these incredibly brave independent journalists and outlets like Al Jazeera, but like Palestinian people just, being able to just show what is happening to them in real time. It is, in my opinion, causing mainstream media to have to cover it in a way that they previously never had to. And you see that they ran with, in early October, they ran with the contextualization of the violence narrative. Every single time Israel would blow up a hospital or a school or something, you would have Jonathan Concuncrius or whatever the fuck that dude's name is, go on CNN and immediately contextualize it and frame it as a totally permissible, dare I say, moral act, morally righteous act that they had to blow up this school. And you don't see that anymore. You don't see that as much anymore in mainstream media. And that is because of the obvious death toll and how unimaginably cruel Israel has been. But beyond that, I think it's because there is a lot of people an entire generation of people who no longer trust no longer trust CNN, no longer trust MSNBC, no longer trust the New York Times when it comes to covering foreign policy. And they have to try and make up for that. They have to try and at least claw on to some shred of credibility. So I think what you guys are doing and what I try to promote here will inevitably cause better journalism to occur in mainstream media as well, hopefully.
Yes, because the ecosystem that Jeremy's describing, to the extent that it exists now, it actually includes elements of all of those newsrooms. There might be somebody sitting, I guarantee you actually, that there are people right now.
Wait, Ryan.
You're muted or something.
Ryan, you muted yourself. There are people right now, you said, and then after that it muted.
Unmute it. Now you click unmute. Ryan and I are old.
Ryan, you just muted yourself. There it is.
There are people right now as we speak, in the CNN newsroom, watching this stream probably. The ecosystem overlaps into and creates friction inside major media and gives succor to the people who are in there kind of waging the good fight. The fact that we were able to report on the New York Times internally because so many people from the New York Times wanted to speak to us. You're exactly, I think you're exactly right. It put and we and they then put pressure on the kind of old guard, and it does kind of come out in the end of the coverage. It's still not good coverage, and it's not coverage they're happy about, but it's less bad than it was, and it's just at the beginning because this ecosystem is growing and that one is shrinking. And also politicians are noticing, which is going to cause problems for the major media. Politicians notice that independent media is now just as good a way to reach the American public as CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, maybe even better in a lot of respects. And that's going to cause all sorts of problems for the major media too, because then they'll lose that. They rely on the myth, and once the myth is gone, then all they have left is their ability to break news that the public wants. But right now they don't have to do that.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
for
just
sure.
looking at your comments, like at the commenters on the side, it's really interesting. I mean, I can barely keep up with it, but I've noticed as we've been chatting over the past hour, like the crowdsourcing of information. I mean, there's a bunch of really intelligent notes that get dropped in this, and then there's things that I don't even understand the language.
Yeah,
But
they're
it's
emos,
really
most
a
likely.
fascinating. No, but there's actually, I've stopped it at a couple of points and read what people said, and there's really interesting comments. It's a very interesting alternative to the Chiron news stream that flows under CNN or MSNBC or what have you. Anyway, I know we've taken up a lot of your time and your audience's time.
No, of course.
But one other thing is like, if people have money to spare and they want to subscribe, that's amazing. But we're not going to put our content behind a paywall. Like, Ryan and I are both committed to information should be free to everybody. And we're in this because also we believe journalism at its best should be a public service. But if people have the money to support us, we're deeply honored to have your trust and hope we, preemptively earn it and then earn it after you've paid attention to us for a while.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on, and once again, thank you for all the phenomenal work you do. I hope that there was a lot of support from this community. I mean, I of course, I have uncritical support for you guys always. So I'm very excited to see what you guys are reporting on in the future.
Appreciate it, brother.
All right. Thank you. Thank you
Thanks
for coming
so much.
on.
Keep up the great work. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, guys.
All right. That was Ryan Grimm and Jeremy Scahill, formerly of The Intercept, now at dropsitenews.com. Go support their journalism, of course. They are phenomenal, as you already know. Some of my favorite guests to have on. And yeah, they're doing brilliant work.
Damn, this guy's good.